Hey, my beautiful mamas. Today's conversations, it's one of those conversations that it's going to stay with you. It's not something that you probably talk about in the grocery store or the carpool line, even though I think we should, because it's not just about grief or loss. This is about what happens when the life you imagine, the life that you were promised, the one that you planned for, the one that you worked for, the one that you dreamed about, just goes away in an instant. And we're talking about identity, we're talking about strength and resilience and motherhood and healing and heartbreak and what it really takes to rebuild when the story you were writing, basically you have to stop writing it in the middle and start rewriting a new one. My guest today is a beautiful human. Her name is Alexandra Wyman. She's a mom, she's an author, she's a podcast host, and she knows this reality deeply. She's a pediatric occupational therapist. She's a single mom, and she lost her husband to suicide, and she had to find a way forward through all of this pain. But more than that, she's somebody who's learned how to peel back the layers of old beliefs and how she faces the mess every single day and how she chooses to put one step forward. And she's going to talk about that. So I'm really excited to have her. But if you've ever felt like your life is not turning out the way you thought it should, or you feel like you're standing in a lot of mess and wondering who you are now, where you're supposed to go from here, then today's conversation is exactly where you're meant to be. So I'm so glad you're here. Alexandra, welcome, and please introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that was a wonderful intro. So thank you so much. It's like really nice to be here. I'm so honored to be able to share some of my story and the little pearls of wisdom I found along the way. Yeah, you said it. I was that person. I had my checklist. I say we get this little checklist when we're born, and it says, here's everything you need to do, right? All that doing. You give yourself this wonderful, successful life. Mine included, getting good grades, going to college. Then you're supposed to find a partner. You get your house, you get married, you have your white picket fence, your dog, the children. And everything just flowed so lovingly. And that's not even how my story went, even before I met my husband.
Yeah.
So I was kind of a late bloomer. So I did the whole college thing and then was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I went and traveled instead. And I was like, I just fell from one thing to another. And then I found OT, which was great. It was a blessing in disguise. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this. I literally fell into it, didn't know what I was doing. I was like, what is this OT thing? And then just discovered it really fit me and my personality. And I started working with kids. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm not really like catching the flow with everyone, but at least I found my career, like check that box off. And then I met my husband. I literally had just said to the universe, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I was in my mid 30s and I said, if I knew other women who were like, I just need to be married. And I thought, oh, it's not, I need the right person to be married to. And so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So for instance, I had a friend, she's like, she was same age and she was like, I just need to be married. Like that's part of her same checklist. And so I was like, I do want to, but I'm not going to sacrifice who that person is, just to be married.
Mm-hmm.
And then, within 2 months, I met my husband and it was amazing. We had an instantaneous full connection. We just felt like we'd known each other for years. We just clicked so well. We used to joke that we were the male female version of each other. And at that time, my mentality, which is different from now, but then I was like, oh, he completes me. I was a partial puzzle piece. He was a partial puzzle piece, and we put us together and we were whole together. And we got engaged right away. We got married 8 months later. We bought our house just 2 weeks after we got married. Then we found out we were having
Okay.
a kid right after that. So I was like, woo, I did this. Look at me, universe. Like, I got this checklist. Check it out. Check. Okay. Like it was a little later than everyone else, but I got this. Well,
Yeah.
and then as you kind of mentioned, like within 2 years, he ended up dying 4 days before our second wedding anniversary. My husband ended up dying by suicide. And there went my beautiful, successful life. what I thought was a beautiful, successful life. There went my checklist.
Okay.
There went all of these hopes and dreams of what I thought was going to be my life.
And you talk about, I just want to go back. You said, I thought he was a puzzle piece that completed me, but I don't think that anymore.
Uh-huh.
And, because I think that's, what are we thinking about the Jerry Maguire, right? And that's part of the rom-com, all that pressure, this is what you graduate from high school, you go to college, you meet your husband or your partner, you get married. Yes, the dogs, the white picket fence. And that's interesting what your friend was saying. I need to get married. It's time to get married. And I do think a lot of people, their biological clock starts ticking and there is that energy behind it. And you see all your friends, you can't help but feel this FOMO and this pressure. You think, well, I can't be the one that isn't getting married. And so, yeah, we're watching all these rom-coms. Yes, you complete me. So you were saying that at that moment you felt like he was. So what was the moment that you felt that you realized that he wasn't the puzzle piece that completed you?
Yeah, that came after. So after he passed and after I started having to dig pretty deep into my
Okay.
grief. And the thing about grief and working through this kind of loss is, and I'm a believer, you can't heal the present until you heal the past. So, and grief just piles on. So if you
Yeah.
have grief in the past that you haven't really healed, you're going to have it again and again. And it's all going to stir up every time you feel grief or loss in the future. So I had to really dive deep into what brought us together. I still believe we were very soul connected. I
Yeah.
absolutely still believe that. But in my own healing process, I realized I don't need someone else to make me feel whole. All of that
Yeah.
is within me. It's me figuring out how to be confident and worthy in myself to know I don't need to. I enjoy being around other people, but I
Yeah.
don't need someone else. I A good example was I was talking to a friend about this once, and she was saying how similarly she was like, "Oh, I need a man to help me financially so that I can have the business I want to have." And I was like, "That's exactly the type of mentality. I need the partner. I can't get the house without a partner. I can't start my business without, right? It's always there's something else external." Now, don't get me wrong. Like, yes, sometimes we need partners and things to help us do things, but truly, like, we're not incomplete because we don't have someone in our life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm so sorry. I know it's been some time, but I'm so sorry that you lost your husband and I'm so sorry he's not here with you. And you are so incredibly strong. And this is a part of your life now, and I think that's something that people who aren't going through that loss and that grief really truly understand, right? It's not linear and you don't get to choose what color it is that day or how strong it is that day or what flavor it is, right? It just kind of becomes another family member, I guess. Um, and so for that mom listening who is experiencing some profound loss right now, and how can you what can you say to her in those early moments, right? Of just understanding and recognition of just how hard it is. And how did you help yourself in those first moments, if you can remember, just like the piercing loss and just, the shattered life and the piercing loss and just the loneliness. And like, what did you do and what really helped you? And what were the things that people said or didn't say that really left a mark for you that really resonated?
Yeah, that's such a great question. But there are a couple different things that works for me. So one of the first things was I had to find what I call an anchor. I had to find the thing that helped me get out of bed, even if it was just to go to the bathroom for a day. Like that was the only outing I could do for a day. And that was my son. He was one when his dad died. So
Okay.
I knew I had to do something because I was like, this cannot dictate our lives. Like, yes, we're going to be impacted by this, and it's going to be something we have to live with. But this cannot dictate what happens in our lives. And so I had that pretty strongly from the beginning. Um, and so I did have support too because I was not a great mom at that time. I didn't know what was happening, what the world was upside down. I didn't know which way I was going. But having that
Yeah.
anchor, just knowing like this is my reason, I think is very important. And sometimes you have to borrow that reason. Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to hold on to someone else giving you the reason before you can really internalize it and hold that for yourself. So that was one of the first things.
Anchor.
Yeah. Another thing that came up for me really is I incorrectly thought I got this grief thing. I'm gonna do this. Like I have to get through this because I gotta get to the other side. This is not cannot mark my life the rest of my life. And so I dove in to for me, I just needed to explore all of my feelings, all of the things. Like I wanted to know more about death, and granted, I was raised in a religious household. I had a pretty strong foundation spiritually, but this really rocked me and pushed me. And my whole point in
Sure.
saying this is like, there will be something that kind of keeps you moving. So, for instance, like I've had some friends where it's their exercise routine that keeps them moving. For
Okay.
me, it was like I need more knowledge. I need to know what is going on with me,
Okay.
what's happening. I like a hobby of mine is neuroscience. So I was like, I want to know what's going on with my brain. I want to know what's good, right? I needed more knowledge. I've known some people where they immediately just they revamped their whole house. They're just like this. And again, all of this is within capacity of what you're able to do. But I think it's like, fine, you've got your anchor, your reasons for getting up. And then it's like, what is something outside of that business that you can be doing to kind of just also ground you into this life? It took me a long
Yeah.
time to get there, I will say too, though, because I was the shell of a person. You're just the shell of a person because everything that you've known to be of your being is just gone. And there's got to be a
Yeah.
way. I don't know that I have an answer for how to find those little bits of hope, but there are ways to find little bits of hope that again serves as a reason to put one foot in front of the other.
Well, you're walking proof of that, right? I think the way you choose to show up with your podcast and your account and your book, right? It probably feels really far away for somebody, but for her to be able to look to you and to see that there's truth in what you're saying, right? That there's actually truth behind the words versus, the fluffy quotes that maybe don't feel as raw, right? And I think that's,
Yeah.
for somebody who's listening to this and the anchor, I've never heard of that before. I mean, if somebody feels really alone, just what if that's their focus right now? It's just searching for an anchor. And I think you even said it. It's being real about what can you do today? Maybe it is just going to the bathroom, right? And trusting your intuition if your body is telling you I need knowledge or I need movement or I need company or I need alone time. It's, leaning into that and allowing yourself that grace because, your life was shattered in a heartbeat, really, and it's like how can we have any not how there's no blueprint for that. How do we know how to
Right.
get through that until we actually get through that? And thankfully, you have found a path and now you're sharing it with other people. And I'm so glad that you are using your voice because there's so many people who are going through that right now and they feel so alone. So thank you for being so strong and for brave that way because I know someone listening right now is literally looking you up saying thank you. Thank you. Alexandra's gonna be my anchor right now.
Well,
Um,
thank you. Yeah, it's not easy. I think one of the things that happens for me is just that I there are lots of resources. They're just not all centralized, and I didn't know how to find them. And
yeah.
so I wanted to have something where it's like, here's a book that tells you all the shit that I went through. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know.
yes,
So,
yeah,
so I went through. Um, and then also like, and here are the ways, and a lot of what I say, honestly, I don't feel it comes directly from me. This is from like my spirit team. This is from my spirituality of saying like, I'm going to be the conduit. Because a lot of it, honestly, at first I was like, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying you can find compassion for people. Like, what are you talking about? You're not doing this. And then I was like, okay, like the more it came up. And so I think that's also a big thing down the line, not when you're in it to win it, like not when you're in the first acute part of this, but so many people find ways after a bit major loss to find their meaning and purpose that is introduced through the loss that they had. And I
Yeah.
think being open and aware to that is also really special and important.
What are a few of the anchor? What are when it wasn't so acute? What are some of the other things that you remember just being very, very helpful? I love that you called it your hobby, the neuroscience. And you have your spirit team. What are talk about that a little bit, because that might help open up somebody their mind's eye to solutions. Like you said, that there isn't a blueprint. So you probably had to kind of try this a little bit, dabble here a little bit, but maybe something that really helped you might just trigger something and open up somebody's mind's eye to I didn't even know that was out there. But what are some things that
Sure.
really helped you?
Yeah, there's lots of things that I tried. So I'll say, first of all, with the movement, my doctor was like, you need to move. And I said, you
Okay.
go move. Like, you do it. I have like the biggest
Yeah.
tantrum
You move
ever.
for me. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Like, are you kidding me right now? Do you know what I've been through? I had a lot of that for so movement, it is really important. I journaled a lot. I mean, there's so many feelings I had, and I didn't always have a place to put those feelings. So I journaled. I screamed. I did scream
Okay.
therapy. I would go and like, whether it was in my car, which sometimes people would walk by and I would scare them, or I'd be in my closet screaming into a pillow. Anyway, I went to a smash it room. I was like, I just need to take this big axe and I need to listen to heavy metal and I need to just annihilate a bunch of furniture. Um,
Great.
so there was that. I also found that, one of the things that's common for grief is that the people you think are going to show up for you don't, and the people that you didn't expect to will. And you have to kind of ride that wave a little bit. There were people I thought for sure would be there for me, and they just didn't know what to do with me. So they couldn't be there. Other people were able to just check in. For me, I found it very helpful because so often with a death, any kind of death, people go, well, what do you need? And it's like, I don't know what I need. Like my life just got turned out. Can you bring him back? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then we go to food, right? We all like to bring food and make food because it's at least we feel like we're doing something. And I did. I would just take people's food and then
Okay.
individuals who could just reach out and text and say, thinking about you, those were the ones that were the most meaningful because they didn't have an expectation of me responding.
Uh,
They're just saying, I'm thinking about you.
I love that. Right?
And that,
It's just, yeah.
yeah, it wasn't transactional. It was just, I'm here for you. So I found that to be really helpful.
I appreciate your honesty about the friends that you expect to show up didn't show up, because I think that can happen in a lot of pivotal times in our life, right? And, there's always extremes, but I remember that happening when I got engaged and when I got married and when I lost my grandmother and when something happened with my child. You just think that people can handle it, but I like these conversations so much because it allows people to put words to feelings, and it allows people to put things into an understanding when they don't have the knowledge around it. I think what happens for a lot of people, right, that when they see their friend in turmoil, it's stressful. So what? It's fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and now there's flop, right? And I mean, it's yeah, it's like that's a whole new one. It's just like people go into these innate reactions and they can't really control it, but it still doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact. And I think that's important that you brought it up, because I know that for somebody going through it, that's a whole nother layer of hurt, a whole nother layer of
Oh, yeah.
loss, right?
hmm
And so how did
And
you navigate that?
so, and I found that like the loss, and it was a big lesson I had to learn. The loss just wasn't my husband dying.
Okay.
There's a loss of who I was before, like who I was with him, who I was after, the life I had with him, the life I had after. All of that was more loss. And it doesn't mean that there wasn't gratitude or blessing through there, but it's that attachment to the expectation around those. I was attached to where my life was going with him. I was now faced with another life that did not include him. And that was really hard. Then
Yeah.
you have friends. Yeah, people you think are going to show up. And honestly, death just makes people feel weird anyway. And grief can make people do weird things, especially if money is involved. Like it can be horrendous. And so that's all I'll say. The system we have, at least here in the US, is that things have to be settled very quickly. And you can't even really start grieving before you have to like settle in a state. Like it just doesn't make much sense. So you've got heightened emotions with something that's businesslike. It's not, it's not great. And so to your point, I think there's like just giving yourself permission to ride the wave, which the wave is not fun. But as you said, I am someone who can say, oh, yeah, there is another side to it. There is
Yeah.
totally another side. And just keep going. And if I have to be someone, if I can be someone to keep reminding you to just keep going, let me do that. Because
Yeah.
the moment I had my first glimpse of joy after my husband died, and I was like, what is this thing that I want more of it? Like, this is great. What do you mean I can still have this? What do you mean I can still make plans and enjoy things? Like, aren't I supposed to just be sad the rest of my life? That's another piece of it too, is you don't have to be like mourning forever, right?
Yeah.
There was very much this feeling for me where it was like some people, and they never said it, right? But there's an underlying theme of like, well, aren't you over it yet? And then there's also like, how can you be over it? Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be mourning. Like, there's just no winning in that. And that's where I say you have to just quiet all of the stuff around you and
Yeah.
just try and stay focused in who you are and really
Yeah.
grounded in who you are, because that is what will guide you.
Yeah. And ask questions of people who've been through it.
Mhm.
What you just said, we are not educated formally in school that this is how you would handle an estate, that this is here you are, you just had a newborn, it's all roses and sunshine, and you're about to celebrate your second wedding anniversary. And it's a 180, right? And so you had to educate yourself, new knowledge, new language, new routine, new pathways, single parenting. There's so many news that you didn't ask for. And it's like you said, there's just a lot of pendulum swinging, right? Like you're trying to survive for your son, you're trying to survive for yourself, right? And there's no education. And so for someone listening who's going through this, I think it's a beautiful permission that you gave them. The intent isn't that you have to abide by anybody else's timeline, right? It's really trusting yourself, but leaning on people who've been through it, so
Mhm.
that you can ask those questions that you were like, I don't even know what I'm facing right now, because your friends
Mhm.
who haven't been through it, they won't know. And that's okay too. I think that's
Yes.
okay too, right? You
Yeah,
talk about,
absolutely.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Oh, I was
ahead.
just gonna say that I agree. Like I found a lot of comfort initially from support group. There are support groups
Okay.
for everything, Facebook groups for everything, where I could be around people who just had an understanding, where I just felt like I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to explain, like they just knew. They all had losses by suicide as well. And while all of those losses are completely unique and different, there's just when you have a loss that's similar, there are just feelings and the abruptness, like you've talked about, and your life gets turned upside down. And just being around people who understood that. And so it took me a while to create a community that I finally went, oh, okay. Like here are the people who are non-judgmental, I can be around and who understand me and are okay being around me. And that was really helpful, but it took time. So I guess that's the other thing I'd like to say is if it's not happening right away, it doesn't mean it can't or it won't.
Hmm.
But part of this process is isolating and can feel very lonely.
Hmm.
I've known people who haven't felt loneliness at all because their people just stepped up and knew. So it is very individualized. But if you are experiencing that, like one, you're not alone, and two, there are ways to connect.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, keep going. And I think that could apply to a lot of things that we go through as women and moms. It's like keep trying and keep advocating for yourself and keep trusting that voice inside of you that says, I want, I need, I desire, right? I think that's a good direction. Like if you're not getting the support from your immediate group, seek it, keep searching, right? Like there's people out there who can help us. And I always think about that. There's so many women and moms that I think suffer in silence. They try to be strong for their kids. Oh, it's okay. I'll deal with it later. Like you said, I'll get through this grief by myself. I can manage this. I can get through this. And even if maybe we get through that day, it's our body is keeping score, things are going on, it's still getting wrapped up in our muscle memory and in our neural pathways, and, it's still gonna be with us, and so I always say, even just like that one person, right? Just so you know that there's somebody out there who's like, girl, I see you. I see you today. I see you
Exactly.
today,
Yeah.
right? You
Yes.
talk about the healing, the before. You've said part of your healing journey wasn't just about losing your husband, right? You also talk about, like you had some limiting beliefs. I want to talk about how a lot of this stuff kind of just, that was a good segue, kind of how some stuff was really coming up. Like this really opened up, this was a wound, right? Like this really kind
Mhm.
of opened up a lot of stuff in you. And I think it's important to be honest because it might, like, talk about your healing journey because you really talk about that you weren't just losing your husband, you really had to face some old wounds and limiting beliefs, and how that kind of helped change how you're showing up now as a woman and a mom.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, man, if we could go back and change, right? Hindsight, it's good.
I am my
Gosh,
eyesight for hindsight is like a fighter pilot clarity.
right?
I mean,
Oh, man, if I had that kind of vision when I was a kid, ooh, be totally different life. And I will say I've had to work through also just guilt and shame around that in and of itself of like reflecting and realizing my own patterns and core wounds and being like, oh boy, that was difficult. And again, not anything where I was a terrible person, but just having to reflect. It can be yucky. It can be so hard. I call it going through the sludge. You gotta work through the sludge. And when you can take away some of that guilt and shame or all of it and say like this, like I am a believer, I'm going to be woke, but I am a believer that my soul chose me, my parents, my life, my lessons. And when I can reflect on that, it kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off. Not that I don't have responsibility, because I do, but just a bigger understanding of these are the lessons I've needed to learn. And so some of those core wounds, I mean, I had a lot of insecurity. I was still am a recovering people pleaser. I found myself a recovering outcome controller. That was my safety. If I could control how a situation, how it worked out, that was my safety. And so letting go of that and trusting God, trusting myself, I was like, what is
yeah.
this T word? I don't even know this T word. I,
Yeah.
um, so I've had to work through a lot of that. I myself also struggled with feelings of abandonment and neglect, even though
Yeah.
I did not have anyone in particular who overtly abandoned or neglected me, but I just been in childhood experiences, internalized those feelings. And so and all of that was brought into the soul connection I had with Sean, my late husband. And
Okay.
I recognize that. And I have even had to work through feeling the blame over how he died. And let me just say, 'cause I feel like I have to say it, but if you've had a loss but suicide, you are not at fault. Like you have no blame. There's no blame in suicide. There just isn't.
Mhm.
Um, and
Thank you for
so
saying that.
yeah, so I really had to reflect on the kind of person that I was and the struggle that I've had in just like maintaining relationships from a very healthy, grounded place. And I'm not there, I'm a work in progress, but I feel like now the person that I am is very different than the person that I was. And while I do say like, there's nothing good that comes out of him dying at all. But very early on, I said maybe some good could come out of whatever process I have. And I absolutely
Mhm.
still agree with that.
I believe you as well. I believe that everything we go through has a purpose and is a guidance, right? And it's it's hard because you absolutely want Sean to be here with you right now, right? And it's not that we want the lessons sometimes that we're actually having to go through, but like you said, if we are going through these lessons, I go outside and I just talk to the universe. I talk to God, I'll hug a tree, and it there's something in that energy that will make me feel less alone. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, and I have a hard time with the trust. I mean, gosh, how many of us are like, if I can just manipulate my kids and this person and that
Yes.
stranger in traffic, then everything today will be okay. Right.
Yes.
And, we can't manipulate. We can't go back in time. We can't go back to our, things with our parents. But I am so thankful for the conversations that we're having now because, and I really want to highlight what you said. You specifically were not abandoned by a person as a child. However, abandonment was a big part of your life. I love that. Thank you for saying it because it doesn't have to necessarily be an event, right?
Uh-huh.
Or something that you would have in the movies, right?
Right.
It's a relative experience, right? And what
Yes.
it does to us is what it does to us. And I think we have to take stock of what we're bringing with us into our relationships and who's coming with us, what past versions of us are coming with us into certain conversations and relationships. And I think it's great when we recognize them and we take care of them, right? And that's beautiful what you've done because you clearly are, your heart got cracked open in a lot of different ways when you lost your husband, and it seems
Completely.
like
Yeah.
yeah. And so with that, now how is that affecting how you're showing up as a mom?
Oh, gosh. The big question. No, I love this. I love talking about it. So similar to kind of how I'm noticing my own pattern of like, I need all the knowledge. I need all the knowledge. So I very early on was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Right. When you have this expectation, like, I don't know what I'm doing. He doesn't know what he's doing, but the two of us together as parents will figure out what we can do, right? Like that was kind of the viewpoint. And then after he passed, I was like, oh, I gotta do something because I gotta figure this out. And so one thing I'll say is like, I have definitely switched how I feel a relationship between a parent and a child is. Raised in a household where it was like the children, however they behave, reflected on the parenting of the parents. I don't really align with that anymore
Yeah.
at all, really. And I think children are just as much a guide for us as we are for them.
Yeah.
And I have found that there are a lot of lessons I'm learning at the same time I'm trying to teach my son. So that's very interesting to do. Even things like my own regulation, like, oh, I'm feeling like I'm emotionally dysregulated. I
Yeah.
better maybe I should take some breaths and do that while you are also taking some breath, right? That same kind of concept. But I think overall, one of the main things that I want to do for my son is to teach him how to be him and who he is. Sorry if that dinging is coming through. Hold on, let me
No,
fix
I can't hear anything. You're great.
it.
No, you're
Um,
great.
but one of the things is I want him to just be solid in who he is. I really struggled with self-worth my whole life. I gave my worth away to people like it was candy. It's like, oh, I'm in a work relationship. I'm going to have you be the reflection to me of how I'm doing
Mm,
versus me know how I'm
mhm.
doing. And so I don't want that for him.
Ew,
I mean,
you
again, he'll
froze a
have his
little
own
bit.
lessons, but really just trying to help him be solid in who he is, to not be small because other people might make comments or do things. And I hope that I can continue again as I become more grounded in who I am, be able to teach him how to be grounded in who he is. Just feel like as I'm learning not to give away my self worth and to be really grounded in who I am, I want to teach my son how to do that, to be worthy of himself, to not make himself small because other people might have a problem. That's the whole people pleaser in me. And really just for him to learn. Again, also the emotional piece is huge for me, obviously, given what happened with his dad. And so just trying to help him be like a healthy human being from that emotional perspective is huge.
I love that too because what you were talking about in regards to grief, it's how nuanced it is, right? Not everybody is going to grieve the way somebody else thinks or believes they should. And so, can we have strength that what I need is best for me and have power in that, right? And that really comes in that self worth piece. And that, what a beautiful lesson, because that's going to be able to apply for him in every pie of his, I think about life as a pie chart, right? It just like spills into every single piece that self worth. And that's so important for kids, especially kids being raised by a single parent, right? Because you're trying to take on the role of two. And when they have a phone in their hand and they're being fed other people's opinions and thoughts and comparisons, right? It's just like you want more than anything to know, for them to know how you think, what you believe, that's what matters. And so, and I feel the same way you do. I grew up in the South, very much kids should be seen and not heard, and they should look a certain way. So looks were very important, but thoughts and voice and
Mhm.
feelings were not. And so it took me a long time to open my mouth and to actually say how I was feeling and, get really comfortable with that. So for me, with my kids, I'm always, what are you feeling? Talk to me. Let's have I
Mhm.
want them to feel safe with their emotions. So bravo to you, because what you're doing is really fucking hard. And you should have muscles like the Hulk because of what you've had to carry and how hard you've had to build. But what I hope our internet connection stays strong, because I really want to talk about your approach, because you talk about the baby steps. And you alluded to this in the beginning of just like you had that acute period. You had to be really patient with yourself and the grace, but talk about those baby steps and like how you really approach your healing and like how you're kind of approaching every day, and how like that guidance.
Absolutely. And again, thank you. They're very complimentary. So thank you. And still learning how to accept
Good
those
job.
too.
Good job.
Um, I feel like life in a way is baby
Mm,
steps. Like you just I think being able, to your point, there is so much information out there about how you're supposed to do things. I don't even like the supposed
yeah.
to's because it can be inundated, just like anything. If you're trying to buy a house, if you're having a baby, if you're trying to buy a car, you can find information that will like spin you in every direction possible, and you land still without having an opinion or a way to do anything. And grades is the same way. So get over, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Get over it to like, oh no, you can't move anything or go through anything because then you're throwing away your person. Like there's just so much
Yeah.
info. And I really think though, with any sort of loss, when a really great book that I listened to is called The Grieving Body, The Grieving
Grieving
Brain. She
brain.
came out with The Grieving Body, but The Grieving Brain anyway. But one of the things that comes up, and this is where I think the baby steps help so much, is because when we have a loss, and the loss doesn't have to be a death, it can be a change in, it can be moving, it can be a change in a job, a career, a relationship ending. You can have grief and all of that. Your brain, though, is so used to whatever routines and habits you have around that thing that you've lost that it takes a while for it to catch up. And in my opinion, there's so much that your brain and your body has to do to heal that if you try and go too
Mm,
fast, you will be kind of put on your
mm-hmm.
ass. Like
Mm-hmm.
the universe will tell you to slow
Mm-hmm.
down. You will have things come up.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, it takes a little bit to understand or even start to rebuild or to say, I can do this, or what do I want to do? I know for me, I didn't even have the mental capacity to do much throughout the day for the first couple months.
Yeah.
So my capacity ended at 1 p.m. usually. By one, I was like, what is this? And I just couldn't do much. When I finally, we lived with family for a little bit. So I knew if we could stay in our house. And when we moved back in our house, I was like, I don't know how to do our day. So I just started working on bedtime. That was the one scheduled thing and routine that I could do. And I just started with like, okay, bath. And then I was like, okay, we can add story time to that. Okay, we can add cuddles to story time to that.
Mm,
And that's how I kind of just took it one step at a time. And
mm-hmm.
again, I don't know why we have to do this to ourselves, but we do. But I gave myself permission to just, if there was a day where I could handle his bath, then I just did that.
Love it.
And that was okay. And then slowly, I mean, for months, I couldn't have an alarm in the morning. I was, no, this isn't happening. And then eventually I was able to work, and just do small little chunks to kind of get myself back into some sort of semblance of a life and a routine.
I appreciate that you even are talking about the small steps with the joyful things, the cuddles, the snuggles, the bedtime, right? Because so much we're always talking about change, it's about pain, the holding the planks, the breaking a habit, the drinking the water, right? It's all about how can I make myself stronger, thinner, more successful. And you're just talking about living, loving, and even
Mhm.
that can feel, even those those actions can feel so hard and so heavy, and that's okay. I think that's what's so beautiful for us to really trust our body. And this is what I love about you and me. We really are that beautiful intersection of science and spirituality. And I think people don't really understand how powerful that intersection is. You are obsessed with neuroscience. I love it. And then we're also very woo woo and spiritual because we understand that they are working together, right? Our brain will tell us this is how life should look. This is what we should be doing. Your ego has so much to say. And then your body and your heart and your soul are like, hi, yes, we know you have this plan. And I think when you can really get those voices communicating together, right? That's alignment for me, right? Alignment is like, okay, I hear you. I understand, but trusting, there's that trust word again, right? Like trusting your
Uh-huh.
body, trusting your heart, trusting your soul, trusting, your brain, and just trying to see how they can all work together in baby steps. But it's the shoulds are heavy, and the supposed tos, and this is how life was supposed to look, and this is what I was supposed to be doing. You were supposed to be married. You were supposed to be together with Sean forever, and in a way you always will be with Sean, right? Like he's going to be a soulmate in a way, but the shoulds can feel so heavy. So I really appreciate you even talking about taking the small steps on the joy, on the love, right? And giving yourself that.
Yeah, and to your point, it is the living because there's so much. Like I said, I had several people who are like, "You are a shell of a person," and I
Mm,
I couldn't even eat for like the first 2 weeks. I was like, "I don't. What is this thing?" And so yeah, you do like it starts with that of just being able to be like, "What can I do just to survive so that my body stays alive right now?"
yeah.
And it becomes like, kind of, at least for me, I can't say for everybody, but it was for me. Like, what's the minimum that I can do right now until my brain can get out of the shock, until I can actually start to face everything. And it is hard. It is really hard. But I think also like being able to zoom out is so beneficial. And it took me a long time to be able to zoom out because for the longest time I was like, why would this happen to me? And like, what did I do to deserve this? And all of that, it's very common to have those kinds of thoughts. And in the end, it was like nothing. Like this is kind of life. Like no one comes out of life unscathed.
Yeah.
Like it's life does not
No.
discriminate. Like we all have experiences that we go through, and it just depends, in my opinion, on like what lessons do you have? Are you here to learn?
Mhm.
And how are those going to come about? I have had moments where I'm like, could we have learned these lessons maybe different way? Like, you know, did it have to happen this way? I don't know. But,
Yeah.
at least I'm like, okay, I can zoom out and actually be like, oh, I see how I have like changed and become more aligned with who I was created to be.
Yeah. Now, with that knowledge, and now you're paying it forward, you're sharing, talk about your book and, choosing to write it, and then talk about your podcast so everybody knows how to find your support.
Yeah.
I want to share it all because it's beautiful.
Well, I love this. Thank you so much. I wrote a book called The Suicide Club, What to Do When Someone You Love Chooses Death. It's not just for anyone who's had a loss by suicide. There's some really good nuggets in there for anybody who's just dealing with loss and trying to figure out how to weed through
Mm.
that. And really that process came. I was gifted some great books after Sean died, and I was like, "Where is my handbook?" Like as you talked about, there's no blueprint, no blueprint. I was like, "Where's the handbook that says like this is how you get through the stuff that life hands you?" So I just felt inspired as I learned my own lessons or was able to navigate through it that I wanted to share that with others. So if for me it was like if I can just like take a 0.5% off of the grief that you're doing through writing this, then maybe that will be helpful.
Love it.
And then also I do have a podcast called Forward to Joy. And really that's just the goal is to have tips and tricks for individuals who are going through grief, but also to highlight stories of other individuals of what they've experienced and how they've overcome. And that's been huge for me. I think at first I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Again, another moment of resistance where I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And then the message came pretty clear, and I've actually really enjoyed being able to do that podcast.
It's really nice because for me, without the words to put toward the emotions, right? It's hard even as an adult, right? You're raising kids. You get so frustrated with them when they have that meltdown in the grocery store, and they're really doing it because they haven't felt that emotion before. They don't even know how to put the words to it. When you go through this kind of loss and you are feeling emotions you've never felt before, it's like you're a child again, right? You can't even put the
Mhm.
words to it. You're having your own mini tantrum in the grocery store and you just don't, you feel out of your body. You don't really understand what's up, down, left, or right. And so the fact that you've put this out there just to help somebody, just give them some words of comfort, to help them know that there's somebody out there who's like, yes, somebody gets it. They are saying the things that I'm thinking, but I didn't know how to say. And there's somebody out there who is going through this. It's so similar. And it's community support, feeling seen, feeling like we belong. That's all we want, right? That's all we truly, truly want. At the end
Exactly.
of the day, we just want to feel like we belong and that we're a part of something and that people understand us and that we feel seen and heard and loved, right? So I just thank you for creating that for people because it's really powerful and it's needed and it's really important. So I'm going to share. I'll drop all of this in
Yeah.
the show notes, so everybody can find you. And then where else can they find you if they want to connect with you and reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. So you can always email me at Alexandra at forwardtojoy.com, or I'm on Instagram also at forwardtojoy.
Perfect. I'll put that all in there. Well,
Yeah.
you're incredible. I really appreciate your time and your strength. You're super inspiring and you're an amazing human being. So thank you so much.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.